We call it the Kennedy curse, as if it were some mystical tragedy sent from the heavens to punish a good family. But if you look closely at the ledger, you'll realize it wasn't a curse. It was a transaction. So, forget what you've been told. Let me show you exactly what it cost to build a dynasty. October 24th, 1929. The air in lower Manhattan smelled of stale cigar smoke, sweat, and absolute panic. On the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, men in $1,000 suits were crying. They were ripping the ticker tape machines off the walls. They were watching their entire lives evaporate in seconds. Outside, on the pavement of Wall Street, rumors were spreading that bankers were jumping from windows. The American dream was bleeding out on the sidewalk. But high above the chaos, in a quiet, oak-paneled office, one man stood by the window. He was sipping water, he was calm, and he was smiling while the rest of the country was going bankrupt. Joseph Patrick Kennedy was making millions by the minute. He wasn't just watching the crash, he had helped engineer it. This isn't a story about luck. It's a story about a man who looked at a burning building and decided to roast marshmallows. Before the White House, before the assassinations, before the Camelot myth, there was just Joe, the gangster in a tuxedo, the man who sold his soul to buy a crown for a son who hadn't even grown up yet. Welcome to the dark origin of America's royal family. To understand the hunger of Joe Kennedy, you have to look at his plate. It was always empty. Born in Boston, 1888, a city that felt more like a private club than a metropolis. If your last name wasn't Adams or Cabot, if you were Irish, if you were Catholic, you were the help, you weren't the master. Joe Kennedy grew up reading the signs in the shop windows. No Irish need apply. Those 4 words didn't break him. They weaponized him. He decided early on that rules were for poor people. Morality was a luxury he couldn't afford. By age 25, he forced his way into becoming a bank president, but banking was too slow. The interest rates were too low. Joe needed an accelerator. And in 1919, the United States government handed him the keys to the kingdom. They passed prohibition. Alcohol, the social lubricant of the nation, became illegal. Overnight, a bottle of scotch went from a commodity to a contraband treasure. While the FBI was smashing barrels in the streets, Joe Kennedy was orchestrating a supply chain that would make a modern drug cartel jealous. He didn't drive the trucks. He didn't carry the guns. He was smarter than that. He operated in the gray zone. He legally imported medicinal liquor, thousands of cases, for the sick, he said, but somehow, miraculously, those cases ended up in the glasses of the speakeasies run by Frank Costello and the Italian mob. Joe never got his hands dirty. He kept them manicured, but every sip of gin in a jazz club in Chicago put a dime in his pocket. He was building a fortune on the vice of a nation. By the time he was 30, he had fuck you money. But he realized something painful. The Boston elite still didn't invite him to their dinners. They drank his whiskey, but they wouldn't shake his hand. He realized that money makes you rich, but only fame makes you powerful. So he went to the place where fame is manufactured, Hollywood. The year is 1926. The movies are silent, but the money speaks loud. Joe didn't go to Los Angeles to make art. He went to colonize it. He bought a film studio, FBO Pictures, and he ran it like a slaughterhouse. He walked onto the set and fired the expensive actors. He cut the filming schedules in half. He told the directors, "I don't want it good, I want it Tuesday." He churned out cheap westerns and low-budget melodramas. The critics hated them. The public loved them. The profits exploded. But Joe wanted a trophy. He set his eyes on the biggest star in the world, Gloria Swanson. She was the queen of Hollywood, tiny, fierce, and incredibly wealthy. Joe didn't just want to sleep with her, he wanted to consume her. He took over her finances. He convinced her to let him produce her magnum opus, a disaster called Queen Kelly. He spent her money, used her fame to get into the best parties, and paraded her around like a prize horse. Meanwhile, back east, his wife Rose was raising his growing army of children. She knew, of course. She knew, but in the Kennedy world, silence was the price of admission. Joe was living two lives in California. He was the playboy mogul in Boston. He was the devout Catholic father. It was a high-wire act, and he was getting bored. The stock market was calling him back. The bubble was getting too big to ignore, and Joe Kennedy had a nose for blood. 1928. The party on Wall Street is deafening. Shoeshine boys are giving stock tips. Taxi drivers are buying on margin. Everyone believes the graph only goes up. Joe Kennedy sits in a smoke-filled room with a group of men known as the Pool. Their game is simple. They pick a stock. They buy enough of it to make the price jump. The public sees the jump, gets excited, and starts buying. The price skyrockets, and then, at the peak, when the grandmothers and the school teachers are pouring their savings in, the Pool sells, all of it. They crash the stock on purpose. They take the profits and leave the public holding the empty bag. It was legal theft, and Joe was the best thief in town. But then came the moment that changed history. Joe is sitting in a barber chair. The shoeshine boy, a kid no older than 12, looks up at him and says, "Mr. Kennedy, you should buy Hindenburg oil. It's going to the moon." Joe freezes. He realizes if the shoeshine boy is speculating, there are no more buyers left. The fools are all in. He walks out of the shop. He goes to his broker and he says two words: sell everything. He doesn't just sell, he shorts the market. He bets millions of dollars that America will fail. When the bell rang on Black Thursday, Joe Kennedy wasn't panicked. He was calculating his net worth. Every point the market dropped, he got richer. As men jumped from ledges, as banks locked their doors, as the Great Depression rolled in like a dark fog, Joe Kennedy emerged with a fortune equivalent to hundreds of millions of dollars today. He was now one of the richest men in the world. He bought a massive estate in Hyannis Port. He bought a fleet of cars. He hired tutors, coaches, and servants, but he was done with business. He had conquered money. Now, he wanted the only thing money couldn't buy: legitimacy. He looked at his sons, Joe Jr., Jack, Bobby. He lined them up like soldiers. "We are not just a family," he told them. "We are a business, and our business is winning." He used his dirty money to buy clean power. He bankrolled Franklin D. Roosevelt's campaign. He bought his way into the ambassadorship to London. He wanted the Kennedys to be the American aristocracy. But you cannot build a castle on a swamp without the foundations rotting. The rot started at home. Joe's ambition was toxic. It poisoned the air in that big house. He pitted the brothers against each other. He made them fight for his affection. He taught them that second place is just the first loser. And then there was the problem he couldn't solve with a checkbook. His daughter, Rosemary, she was sweet, she was slow, and in Joe's eyes, she was a flaw in the product line. As 1940 approached, as Joe began to plot his son's run for the presidency, he looked at Rosemary and saw a ticking time bomb. What if she talks too much? What if she gets pregnant? What if the voters think we have bad genes? The architect of the Kennedy fortune had fixed the stock market. He had fixed the film industry. Now, he decided he needed to fix his daughter. Joe Kennedy thought he was playing chess with God. He thought he could sacrifice a pawn to save the king. But he didn't understand the rules of the game. The check he was about to sign to the doctors at George Washington University Hospital would cost him more than money. It would invite a darkness into the family that no amount of holy water could wash away. He had stolen the American dream. Now, he was about to steal his daughter's life. This was the ascent, the glamour, the money, but what goes up must come down, and the fall is going to be brutal. In the next episode of Cashualties, we enter the operating room. We witness the single most horrific act committed by a father in modern history, the betrayal of Rosemary Kennedy. You might think you know the story, but you don't. Subscribe and turn on notifications. You need to see part 2, The Sacrifice, because the Kennedy curse isn't a myth. It was a choice.